So what I'm going to talk about is me. So I'm an Aries, and that's what Aries do. So I want to talk just a little bit about my journey and how African-centered psychology in particular came into my life, and an encouragement to get you all to incorporate it into your lives. So how I came to African-centered psychology, a lot of you have heard me talk about this before, was through my engagement with taking Black Studies classes at the community college level. And so for me, it's really important that we get exposed to this material in our educational processes. And so I had the joy and the pleasure, because of the time of which I came up in, that you could take courses from a Black perspective as part of your curriculum. So you could take psychology from a Black perspective, and sociology, and many other topics, poetry and literature, and be able to develop your knowledge base around African-centered psychology and other topics as part of your academic experience. And so as a part of that, I was introduced to the Association of Black Psychologists, and it's really through ABSI that I got my grounding in African-centered psychology and the work that they did. The school that we're sitting in, transpersonal psychology, integral psychology, all of these sort of alternative psychologies generally came up right around the same time, including ABSI, in 1968. A lot of them were rooted here in the Bay Area. I don't know what was happening in 1968. There was a lot going on cosmically because of the creation of a lot of these philosophies, all sort of coalesced and came together in conversation and in dialogue, whether it's transpersonal, integral, or African-centered. So that would be an interesting research study for someone here to take on what was going on in 1968 that created this pivotal moment to bring all of these different alternative psychologies and practices into existence, to have them coalesce. I don't know, but it would be a good study. And the other component around African-centered psychology for me is the creation of an organization that my husband and I formed back in the late 90s called Sankofa Cultural Institute. And with SCI, we created it as an alternative educational space, in part because within the traditional academy, there isn't much opportunity for people to express their knowledge. The work that Ebide's done and the work that Arisika and Sandra has done in the academy oftentimes, and this is a unique space where you can do it to a point, but there's always that point that where you can't fully express all that you know and all that you want to know in a unedited way from an African-centered or indigenous-centered perspective. And so, in part, we created the Sankofa Cultural Institutes to give that alternative space for Black intellectuals to be able to be in dialogue and share their knowledge and to teach and to be engaged with the community. And so for myself, I applied African-centered psychology specifically in my academic work when I write papers. And I really appreciated Sandra's statements at the morning session where she talked about positionality. And it was actually here, I had been doing it for many years without really knowing that that's what I was doing. And it was when I came here to do the BAC program, she was one of my first cohort facilitators. I think you were the beginning one that took me through that process, that I was introduced to the idea of positionality and of seeing how you know knowledge, of understanding how you perceive of knowledge, where knowledge comes from, where you situate it in your already existing ways of knowing and doing. And in bringing that to the fore, it's really become a tool that I intentionally engage with when I'm doing my academic work. And so I make a point of, whenever I'm writing a paper for any class, or whatever the topic may be, that I take an African-centered perspective on it. And so I wanted to just give you some titles, some examples of papers that I've written over the years, so that you can hear a little bit of the diversity in those titles. And I'm saying this not to just talk about myself, as I was joking at the beginning, but as an encouragement to each of you, especially the students that are here, so that you can know that this is a lived experience. This is a practical, African-centered psychology or African thought is a practical philosophical approach that can be applied to a variety of different topics and subjects. It's not just about psychology. And so, for example, in the BAC program a gazillion years ago, I wrote a field, what was referred to as a field reader or lit review. And the subject of it was Sankofa, an African-centered approach to culture and community. And so I basically did an annotated bibliography of different literature that I thought would fit within that section of the BAC program. So a thread that sort of runs through for me is that missing voice. So I would come into whatever the subject is and go, where are the black people? That's always my first question, where are the black people? And so it's a struggle when you move through the world that way with having to balance bringing the voice to the subject matter and learning the subject matter that is being presented and bringing those two things together. And so for myself, I often have struggled with, not so much now, with what work am I doing? Am I here to educate the institution, or am I here to gain an education for myself? And so those two things are constantly at struggle with one another. And so because of my frustration with the absence of the African voice as I perceive it, I went about to leave evidence that it should exist and that it does exist, and here it is. And it speaks to what Arisika was saying, and also to Ebede, around part of the African construct it's not just about you doing what you want. It's about leaving something for those who are going to come behind you and pulling on what's come before you so that you can leave it so that the next person can come and pick it up and bring it forward. Another paper is on when I was a student at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, now known as Sophia University. And this paper was written on Jung's theory of individuation and its relationship to the African concept of self and consciousness. Now the class was Theories of Personality, right? So if you were in a class called Theories of Personality, your first inclination would probably not be to write a paper on Jung's theory of individuation and its relationship to the African concept of self and consciousness, because they're not thinking about any of that, right? So again, it's up to me to go and find the material and connect it in. What is it that I already know from the readings that I've already done, and what new readings can I go out and discover that relate to this particular topic? Another example is, and you'll see a theme here, I use a couple of words over and over again, African-centered transpersonal self and diaspora, a psychospiritual wellness report. And this paper was written for a class called Scholarly Writing for Publication. And I'll save it for a second because that was sort of a cumulative one. For a class here at CIIS called Varieties and Scholarly Approaches, I did a paper called Participatory Research and the Reclamation of Psychospiritual Wellness of Black Cultural Workers, the Sankofa Wellness Program. And for a class on Histories and Systems of Psychology at ITP, Transpersonal and Optimal Psychology. So optimal psychology is it's a theoretical framework and approach to doing approach to psychology that's specifically African-centered. And so at each point, no matter what the class, I don't care what topic someone would throw at me, I would find the African voice. And I made a commitment to, I always joke and say that it's a ratio of 2 to 1. So for every white scholar, you're going to get 2 black scholars. It's actually reversed because I don't really know much about white people and white psychology. I didn't spend much time looking at them. I spent most of my life looking at black folk and what we know, and what we do, and what we've produced, and what we've contributed to the world. So it's easy for me, to some extent, just because that's where I've spent my life, is reading works by African scholars. But it's still work. It takes me twice as long, sometimes 3 times as long, to do anything, because I have to have this shadow library that I'm always reading. And so when they hand me Wilbur, Like when you were just talking the other day, I was making these notes and wanted to grab it right quick. I got really excited. Because when you were talking about, and I should be able to pronounce it since he's the guy who founded the school, or whose philosophy the school was founded on. Aurobindo?
Aurobindo.
Thank you. And the higher self and the divine, the truth and pure consciousness. And you were talking about those 5 principles. That's the mystery system. So in ancient Kemet, or ancient Egypt, there was the mystery schools. And so as a part of that process, you would go through, one of the first stages is control of thought. And so there's these various steps that you had to advance through in order to become a priest or a teacher. And so those same exact principles, almost literally, are found in the mystery systems of ancient Egyptians. And so it's just like, it's right there. So no matter what you pick, African people have written about it, done it, been there, figured it out, or in the process of doing it. And so it's oftentimes, it's frustrating and well, not now, but I've gone through phases where I've been very frustrated with the absence. And it's like, oh, here I go again. I have to educate. I have to spend my time, instead of moving my thoughts forward, telling whoever I'm in dialogue with about what already exists, because they don't know. But it's been a good exercise. I don't fight with it or struggle with it anymore. And I've gotten to a place now where I feel like I can do my work and I don't have to do that education piece for someone else, as much as I'm doing deepening the ideas for myself and being able to synthesize them into creating something new. The other area that has been deeply meaningful to me and has helped actually in this process of not feeling so frustrated for the absence of the voice is by engaging with Black students throughout the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And so 3 years ago, I created the Bay Area Black Graduate Student Group. And I did it in part because I was in an online program. And so not only did I have sort of an isolation with my ideas and knowledge level and all those sorts of things, but I also had some isolation in terms of community. And so to help with that, I decided to just put up on Facebook that I'm going to be at a cafe in Oakland at a certain time every month, consistently. And if you all wanted to come and join me at the cafe at this particular time every month, we could be in community and dialogue with each other. And so over the last 3 years, now it's on the 4th Saturdays of the month, I have Black graduate students from a variety of different universities and disciplines. We come together and are in dialogue with each other about our work. It was a joy just this past Saturday that I went to the master's thesis capstone presentation for one of the students who's been coming to the group. And it was so lovely to be able to see that the dialogues that we've been having as a community of people in her work. And she's finished her master's in visual and critical studies at the California College of the Arts. And it was looking at this Black woman actor during the time of the minstrel time with the blackface, and how she did not engage in blackface in her performance. And so some of the languaging that she used, she was able to refine in dialogue with us as part of that group. Another place that has really helped me feel more integrated, if you will, is the MHSA ABSI program, where about a year ago we began Rachel and I worked together to put together a group of about 5 or 6 Black graduate students here at CIIS so that they could attend the ABSI convention that last year happened to be in Las Vegas. And as a part of that process, I was able to really realize for the first time that I actually knew some things about some things. You would think, as old as I am, that I would have figured that out, but I hadn't actually realized that I actually do know some things about some stuff, and that I know a lot of things about African-centered psychology, and that all of this work that I have been doing to do this research, to write papers about the African-centered of the blah, 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 I actually know some things about that now. and I have the ability to share that with other people. And it's not just me being frustrated with the absence of it in literature, and me arguing with the invisible person on the page, that I could actually surround myself with living, people and be in communication with them and learn from them and share what I know with them. And so last year we began this process called the MHSA ABSI cohort. Mahal is a part of that cohort. And leading up to it, we would do, we had readings that we did, we had dialogues, we met once a week, generally before. Afterwards, we went to convention, which was just a phenomenal transformational experience for all of them. Their engagement here at the university has improved. We've gotten great feedback from their faculty around their engagement, and it's just been transformational for all of us. They've come back and done a lot of things, post-convention activities into psychology was sort of part of that. The Transgress group, which was going on, has deepened as a result of that. The Black student brown bag lunches. There's all kinds of activities that have happened in the last year or so that's a direct result of the work that Rachel and I have been doing with that. And we've been able to talk Judy into giving us money, which we're really grateful for, to help underwrite some of the cost of sending students to the convention next year. And we also have some plans to keep it going. We're going to be featured in next month's CIIS Today's magazine. I got to see a little preview of it earlier today. It's fabulous. So right now my research is looking at how I can continue to support Black graduate students. I'm particularly interested in mentorship with Black women and mentorship and how we can form more intentional communities of passing down information. I'm working on developing my teaching skills. It's just this year that I realized again, oh, I know some things and I can share those things. And how do you do that? You teach. So I've been going back and reading a lot of the work that Sandra has shared with me a few years ago around critical pedagogy. I'm like, oh, that's what that was about. Oh, now I get it. So I'm a little slow, but I'm catching up. And so I've been able to present in the Intro to Community Mental Health class. I did a presentation in a research methods class. Right now I'm working with Danielle in the Expressive Arts Therapy program. We're co-designing an online African-centered EXA class that we hope that we're going to offer soon. We're working with Judy and a couple of other people to create an African-centered certificate program, so an African-centered psychology certificate program. So keep your fingers crossed and that we'll be able to do that, which will be huge because we'll be the only school that does that. So it'll be a very beautiful and unique offering. I also keep at my desk a stack of articles and resources that anybody can come by and pick up. Everyday stopped by earlier today and grabbed a couple of them. So there's lots of articles and things that I keep there. And I still host the Black graduate group on the 4th Saturdays of the month. And there's also the Bay Area Association of Black Psychologists meeting that happens on the 3rd Saturday of the month. So that was all I really wanted to share. I just wanted to kind of give an overview around how you can take all of this information and apply it in your work as a student. And you can then, as you begin to really bring it into your body and really bring it into your mind, you can bring it into your work. And as you bring it into your work, then you can share it with other people and begin to replicate yourself. So as what Everday was speaking to around that cyclical piece and how you're constantly growing and developing and giving and receiving. And it's a very African thing to do. And it's a beautiful thing. So it's been, my life here at CIIS has been much more than I thought that it would ever be. And it was a lot of work. It was hard going, but it's joyful work. And so I just wanted to say thank you more than anything.